of 1922. I'm not gonna lie, I will likely do that voice several times throughout our little chit chat. And I am so glad you reserved an area right for that tramp stamp. That is the only place that is appropriate for a good Beauty and the Geek tattoo. So, in a quick nutshell, I noticed that my I is a number 1, so please ignore any typos that I know will be here. In 1922, a seasonal fashion faux pas led to riots in the streets of New York City, where else, leading to numerous hospitalizations and arrests. So it starts with fashion, so we're going to get into the fashion here. There we go. This is the hat that started it all. The hat heard round the world. This is the straw hat, also known as like a boater hat. So we're going to go through a brief history of the hat, because it is a little bit interesting. So it's like considered a men's dress hat. You can kind of see the picture here. The straw boater came like really popular at the end of the 1800s, and it really kind of marked this change socially from, you know, it was more informal, less rigid in terms of like class structure and just kind of how people went about. Obviously, it's still a little prissy going on here, but the straw hats, you know, made them look a little bit more cash. So by the early 1900s, the straw boaters were like super popular in the summer months by both the middle and like the working class. For a while, I know what I read was that it was kind of seen as a no-no to wear them in like cities and kind of those bustling areas. But by like the early 1900s, around this time, this is really when it kind of started to infiltrate everywhere. It was a definitely acceptable in most social situations in the summer months, at least. So the boater, when it started, was a stiff straw hat. It was kind of uncomfortable, but it was light, right? So it was, you know, kind of deep. You can see how it looks. I'll just go back. Flat top. It had the ribbon around it. You know, this guy, barbershop quartet. The barbershop quartet hat is kind of what I'm saying. But it was like really popular if you're on like a boat, you know, on the countryside, seaside, you know, you get the drill. So from 1880 to 1920, it was a big thing for tennis courts, picnics. It was worn by men and women. It wasn't just like a genderized thing, casual summer stuff. So the straw dress hats took a shift in the 1930s, and so it looked cool, but it was uncomfortable. But they kind of adjusted to make something that was a little bit more comfortable on their head, because it was stiff. It's like itchy, gross. So it kind of paralleled the shift from the hard derby hats to soft like hats and felts. So this type of hat shifted to a more soft straw hat, and that was like the Panama hat, which we all know. We've all seen these. You know, you have to wear with a flowy Hawaiian shirt on a cruise, cocktail in hand, a Bahama Mama in hand. That's what it kind of shifted to. It was the softer straw hat, the Panama hat, a couple other types. But this really soared to popularity at the start of the 20th century because good old Teddy Roosevelt was wearing one when he appeared in a press situation, right? So the demand for the hat went wild. I found this stuff kind of interesting. Oh, I don't know if I put the price in here, but like a true Panama hat, I guess, is pretty rare because they have like knockoffs, but they kind of like fall apart. A good Panama hat lasts for like ever. Like it's like getting Doc Martens, but the Panama hats like now, like if you're looking for one, a good authentic one costs like $1,000 for the fucking party hat. Excuse me, I didn't mean to curse. I'm trying not to curse. I'm trying to be better, but that just blows my mind. $1,000, you're gonna pay $1,000 to be the party uncle? That's insane. But people like I swear to you, like. People took this kind of stuff seriously. In Turkey, modernization laws banned the traditional fez in like the 1925 and mandated specifically the use of the Panama hats. So you couldn't even wear like the traditional ones in 1925 in Turkey. You had to wear the Panama hat. And then by 1944, the Panama hat became Ecuador's most like primary export item. So like this ugly hat, which it's not that ugly, you know, it's fine. I just have a cool character associated with it. But 1944, it was Ecuador's primary export item, which I thought was crazy. But then by the second half of the 20th century, hats weren't all that popular. So Like I said, so we're gonna skip back to 1922, the date at hand here. So initially, like I said, it was not really kosher to wear these in big cities, even in the height of summer. But by the 20th century, like early 20th century, the straw boaters were acceptable day attire. So, and that was even for businessmen. So, like, class didn't matter. This was a thing. But there was one rule that you had to live by. You don't wear these things. You don't wear these things after September 15th. Summer fair game after September 15th. No. I couldn't find a start date, so I don't know when you can pick them back up again. But it's like white after Labor Day. You don't wear your straw hat after September 15th. So the date was really arbitrary, even though they took it pretty seriously. This is stressful. Yay! Oh, following. My screen's blurry. I can't see who's following, but I'm assuming this is Kiwi Frizzle, so thank you. Hello. Thanks for joining. I can see now why we all just wear sweats and hoodies, right? Like, there are no laws with their straws. Ain't no laws when you're wearing straws. Okay, so back to history now. So that September 15th date was super arbitrary. Like I said earlier, it was September 1st, but apparently, I guess they probably just liked wearing their hats. So they kept pushing it back, and it eventually ended up on the 15th. Kiwi Frizzle, we are doing a little history chat about the 1922 straw hat riots. So there were riots in New York in the 20s about hats. So we're kind of talking about that. You're in at a good time. So again, the date landed. You can't wear the hats after the 15th. So if any man was seen wearing a hat, he was at minimum ridiculed, like relentlessly mocked. But then it became a tradition for the youths of the streets to knock the straw hats off of people and stomp on them. The tradition became like really well established to the point where newspapers would like warn people of the impending like date. So the newspapers would have these little reminders like, oh, just 3 more days until you have to hang up your hat, you know. And then on the 15th, they had to switch to felt or silk hats, and it kind of became known as Felt Hat Day. I don't know. So this is where it starts to get kind of weird. So some hat snatchings, even with like the playful little, you know, oh, we just knock it off and crush it. It's embarrassing. But some were kind of violent. And this is before the New York one. A Pittsburgh Press article, which, I mean, not to, you know, poo-poo on Pittsburgh, but shocker, right? A Pittsburgh Press article on September 15th, 1910, described an incident where the police had to interfere in more than one instance to protect people wearing the straw hats. So they chalked the riots up to just kind of like, you know, kids being kids, essentially. Yeah, it's exactly like No White after Labor Day. So, but this is more intense because I feel like we don't we don't knock the clothing off of people. We don't humiliate them in the streets. So they took the fashion faux pas pretty seriously. Like I said, it kind of got like aggressive in Pittsburgh, but they kind of made it seem like kids being kids. But the press apparently predicted that it would get dangerous if it got pushed too far, like if they kind of let it keep going this way. And the quote was, "It is all right for stockbrokers on the exchanges to destroy one another's hat if they like, on the principle that everything goes among friends. But no man likes to have his hat snatched from his head by somebody he has not yet been introduced to." So yeah, the tradition really, from what I've read, started as like friends jonesing each other. Like, oh, you see someone on the train, you know, you're wearing your straw hat, knock it off. Let me take your hat. Did you know what the date is? I don't know. So that's what I picture it as. And the kids kind of started getting in on it. It made it annoying, like teens do. They just get in on a cute little tradition and they make it annoying. So they started doing this to strangers, and then it kind of upped the ante. So oh, shoot. There we go. Sorry, I was getting myself confused. Here is the correct slide. The riot itself began on September 13th, 1922. So 2 days. 2 days, I might add, before the unspoken, which I don't know why they keep saying unspoken. It's spoken. They put it in newspapers before that date, right? So, 2 days before people were supposed to hang up their hats, they still had time. The riot began. A group of young people decided to get an early jump on the tradition. So it began in the former, I guess, Mulberry Bend area of Manhattan. Don't know what that is, but maybe somebody does. So they would remove the hat, stomp on it, and they did that to some factory workers in the area. So the more like innocuous stomping kind of ended up into a brawl when they tried to stomp on this like group of dock workers' hats, and the dock workers decided to fight back. They're like, no, you punk kids. Like, we still have 2 more days to enjoy our uncomfortable hats. I don't want to switch to the stupid felt hats. They make my head sweaty. So, no, you're not going to stomp on my hat and make a fool out of me when you don't have a calendar. Let's go. Let's fight. You want to take this to the streets, you punk? That's what I'm imagining happening. So, the brawl eventually got so, like, intense, it stopped traffic on the Manhattan Bridge, and it was eventually broken up by police, but there were some arrests, all right? And it didn't stop there. Like, that wasn't just like, oh, that's the riot. Ta-da, there's a big fight that stopped the bridge, which in enough would be like a story because, I mean, these people fought over these strange hats, the barbershop hats. So the initial brawl was broken up by police, but the fights escalated into the next evening. And this is where it got, like, serious. And I don't really understand the mindset here. Maybe the teens got mad that, like, someone, like, I don't know, they fought back. So they're like, no, this is our tradition. We've earned this. Gangs of teenagers literally started to prowl the streets with, like, bats and sticks and, like, some of them had legit sharp nails sticking out of them. Like, this is stuff that you picture in, like, Mortal Kombat or something. Let's see. My gramps made felt hats in 1922. I guess I'm not a straw hatter. Good. Because if you were on this date, if it were this day and you were a straw hatter, you'd be knocked out in the streets with a bat with a nail sticking out of it. That's insane. They started terrorizing the streets, looking for people wearing the straw hats and beating those who, like, didn't just give in to them. Like, anybody who fought back, they'd start beating them with their stupid nail sticks. Talk about needing a hobby, right? Like, did they not have after-school programs back in 1922? So one man had claimed that his hat was taken and the group that took his hat joined a mob of like 1,000 people. So, like, this wasn't just like 15 kids, which even enough would be like, Jesus Christ, like, chill out. Like, just chill about these hats. Like, the kids joined like 1,000. Like, this was a city full of angry teens about these hats. And it wasn't even the expiration date yet. Like, wait to the 15th if you're going to get violent. Right? So it was all along Amsterdam Avenue. I slurred that entire phrase. Amsterdam Avenue. Now, several men were hospitalized from the beatings. Like, this was serious. Like I said, they had the big sticks with, like, nails sticking out of it, fighting all these people, and people were hospitalized. Like, they were hurt. And, they had a bunch of arrests. Now, police were slow to respond to the riots, which, I mean, what are you doing, man? There's a whole riot. Like, people are, like, what are you doing? But, I mean, several off-duty police officers found themselves caught up in the brawl because rioters tried to snatch their hats. And then it was personal. But, the headline of the New York Times the following day, like the morning of the next day. Now, this continued for days. So, like, day 2, the headline of the New York Times was like, straw hat riots embroil East Side. And it asserted that the I love this. I just love this line, so I had to add it in. The inalienable right of a man to wear a straw hat in a snowstorm, if he desires, is to be upheld in this city by both police and the magistrates. And a warning has been sent to broadcast to all straw hat smashers last night that jail terms on assault charges awaited them if they started any such carnival today. Also, I like referring to any kind of mayhem as a carnival because it just makes it seem like it has more pizzazz. Amsterdam. Now, okay, why is my thing all a hot mess? So one article said in some cases, mobs of hundreds of boys and young men terrorized whole blocks. So yeah, it was like thousands, hundreds. Complaints poured in upon police from men whose hats were stolen and destroyed. But as soon as the police broke up the gangs in one district, they resumed their activities elsewhere. Like this was all over the place. And they, like I said, were slow to respond, and then they couldn't keep up when they realized the severity. Now, one police sergeant apparently tripped and fell into a gutter when he was chasing boys who had battered his hat. So, like, then they took it personally. They started taking it personally. What is going on? So, yeah, many of those who were taken to court, so a bunch were arrested, right? Now, a lot of those taken to court opted to be fined rather than serve time in jail. And they were all, like, young. Like, there's a group of, like, 15-year-olds, right? Like, so I guess they were never going to get in any serious trouble, but they were, like, beating people seriously over something so stupid. But a few of them did serve several days in jail. The one kid named, I guess, A. Silverman is all they identified him as. But he only served, like, 3 days in jail. I hear he must have been, like, one of the ringleaders or something. So you would call it a traveling circus? Yes. I love that. Love that. What? I had to be in some sort of headline, right? Now, the tradition, this is what gets me a little, like, I think it's kind of wild. So the tradition, you'd think after that, that was like, that'd be the culmination. Like, you know what? Maybe this shouldn't be a thing anymore, right? You know? Let's kind of cut out this tradition. But the tradition of hat smashing continued for years after the riots. I mean, not like a decade, I don't think, but like, you know, several years. And it was the worst occurrence. Like 1922 is the worst. Like it never got worse than that, but it was pretty bad. Like in 1924, apparently someone was murdered. Someone was murdered for wearing a straw hat, which, I mean, I guess that might be worse than the riot, but I guess it was not as grand of a scale, but 2 years later, someone was murdered for wearing a straw hat. That's stupid and insane. And then the next year, there were a bunch of more arrests in New York that were similar. So, yeah, that's basically the end of it. The tradition really kept going until straw hats just weren't popular. Oh, yeah, no, I guess I did have another slide or two. So, yeah, the seasonal switch from straw to felt hats, like, Panama hats kind of got more fashionable in the 1930s, and the straw boater wasn't as fashionable, and people weren't like, Panamas apparently were expensive and rare, so no one's gonna be smacking your imported straw hat off your head, because then you probably would get like an ass whooping. But yeah, so that's basically it. Oh yeah, this is a little bit more history. Sorry, I keep forgetting how much I actually added in here. So they think that it kind of started to go out of date because they seem like quaint after the Wall Street crash. So that was a symbol of like the irresponsible 1920s. So straw hats for men were still manufactured, but they closely resembled hats like the Panama. So like they still made them, but they tried to make them look like the other hats that were more popular. And by the 50s, the straw boater was like basically extinct, except in, I guess, like certain English public schools if they were part of the uniform, or university and college sportswear, which is strange. They call it sportswear, but I'm like, why would you want that on your head when you're like playing a sport? It just does not seem comfortable. Seems itchy. I feel like when you're wearing one of those and you sweat, it's gonna itch. But that is the long and short of it. I know that was a slightly shorter one today, but I guess the timing's about the same. Can we get Bendy on the phone and ask his opinion? Yes. Oh my God, he'd be the perfect one. We saw his fashion. I mean, I know we learned that he was a paid actor, which breaks my heart. But, you know, there's got to be a little bit of reality there. That's not just somebody who, you know, just, I'm putting on a ruse. That was too good. There's a little bit inside of his heart. Bendy would know. Bendy would know all about the straw hats. He looks like a time traveler. He probably was there during the 1922 straw hat riots.